Welcome to the Asian Wedding Podcast with your hosts, Radhika and Shindi. On this podcast, we talk all things wedding planning, share expert advice and insider tips to help all of you brides and grooms become fully equipped to plan your dream wedding day.
Hi, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Shindi.
And I'm Radhika.
So we're super excited to be here, and we're at the start of 2021. And we've been thinking about trends for the forthcoming year. Most of you must have experienced some challenges over the last 12 months with COVID affecting our lives. And we're here to let you know some of our top trends that we're expecting over the next 12 months. Okay, so the first trend that we're going to discuss is intimate weddings and events. We really feel that intimate events and weddings will continue, and even if the numbers do increase later on in 2021, many people will still opt to have smaller weddings, which is pretty much been the unknown for Asian weddings over the last 5 or 10 years. We've been so used to large gatherings, but with obviously COVID playing its part, that's completely changed things. So there's plenty of beauty around just having your nearest and dearest present on your special day, and I'm definitely a champion for that. So as many couples have postponed their larger scale weddings once or even twice over the last 12 months, we're finding that so many couples are pointing to the smaller gatherings and actually doing something a lot more intimate.
Just to really echo on the point that you mentioned, and there's just something so beautiful around having your nearest and dearest just present there for your special day. I know we're all so used to having that big fat busy wedding, but I think with everything that's happened over the last year, many of us are just so grateful to have 15, 20 people, your nearest and dearest present there with you to witness you and your other half basically getting married and tying the knot. And obviously those bigger celebrations will definitely come later down the line when you're able to have a larger celebration. But focus on, having your nearest and dearest there and enjoying that special day with them, and then having a bigger party, celebration, reception a little bit later down the line. So the next trend that we wanted to discuss with you guys is that it will be all about the details. So there'll be a larger emphasis on more intimate events happening this year. So we feel that couples will definitely be focusing more on those extra special details. And especially if your wedding's been scaled down from a wedding of say 300 to 400 people and it's gone down to say 15 to 50 people, there'll be a little bit more budget to play around with as well. So you can then allocate this budget to focus more on those finer details. So those kind of things could include, more elaborate flowers, different tableware, or even focusing more around different food experiences for your guests. So things like, taco stations, because obviously I'm all about the Mexican food, or like different kind of quirky vans, like a pizza van, for example, just to really have that wow factor for your guests when they arrive and are there present on your big day. This also includes personalisation as well. So obviously it's so much more difficult to personalise on a larger scale wedding just because obviously there's just so many guests attending. So it's just a little bit more difficult. So when your numbers are a little bit more intimate, it allows you to think about extra details. So, having personalised stationery on the tables and just all of those extra details just to really personalise your event that extra step further.
Yeah, so totally agree with it being all about the details. Micro weddings obviously will be here to stay for at least a few years, and it means you can allocate that budget towards the finer things, the things that are going to stand out, and actually those things that mean something to you as well. So on other days where we're doing big weddings, where everything's mass produced and we're rolling it out like a factory, no. Let's focus on those little details and make it extra special for you and your guests.
So the next point is on focusing on traditions. So we really feel that there will be definitely a larger focus on traditional celebrations happening this year. So when I say traditional celebrations, it could be a civil marriage, it could be your Anand Graj, your Hindu ceremony, a nikah, or any other type of religious ceremony that you would be having. And this is just due to potentially restrictions in place by your local governments or depending on where you're based in the world. So in the UK, there were restrictions in place, and that meant that last year only weddings of a certain size could have happened, and also receptions weren't allowed at that point. So if that is the case going forward for this year, we really do feel that a lot of couples will just continue with their plans and focus on their traditional ceremony and then have a larger celebration later down the line, which is obviously still really nice because you could have a celebration a year later down the line to mark your first year anniversary, for example. And I think that people that will think, I don't want to have my ceremony in a religious entity and things like that, but so much can be done to really make your religious entity look very beautiful, whether it is a church, whether it is a registry office, whether it is a venue or a gurdwara, mandir or mosque, wherever you're getting married, and depending on the restrictions in place at that place of worship or location, you could have some really beautiful flowers. You can, go to town with the details just to make it look really beautiful. And of course, having your nearest and dearest there. But yeah, so we really do feel that there will be a large focus on traditions.
For bride and grooms, really, it's got to be a win-win situation because, how many times have we all attended weddings where there's hundreds of people and it's very difficult to take in what's happening, the background noise. How many times has a priest or a wedding celebrant had to ask one of those aunties or uncles to be quiet and stop talking? So, intimate numbers do mean that it's going to be your nearest and dearest, and in fact, you can enjoy it more as a bride and groom. So wedding trend number 4 is focused on weddings happening all year round. When restrictions are lifted, we will see an increase in weddings taking place, not just only on the weekends, but on weekdays too as well. So traditionally, weddings would usually take place in spring and summer months, which is pretty much a thing of the past. We've seen over the last few years that actually brides and grooms are happy to do them even during winter months as well, right? So if you're looking to book your dream wedding venue, you may want to consider weekdays, as many dreamy venues will already be booked with postponements from 2020, as well as all those other brides and grooms who have been engaged the last 12 months and have been planning their weddings as well.
Right, so trend number 5 is shorter planning turnaround times. So with the way we've been updated over the last year with changes to guidelines from the government, with often changes taking place within days to restrictions, it has meant that suppliers and couples have had to plan on shorter turnaround times. So we definitely feel that this will continue for some time, but it means that couples will make decisions quicker on things that previously they may have taken a little bit longer to think about. So instead of spending, a handful of months thinking about which decor company to book or which DJ to book, they'll have to decide within pretty much weeks or maximum a month, depending on obviously restrictions going ahead. But yeah, I think that will definitely be the way forward for some time. But it also shows as suppliers, we can definitely plan beautiful weddings and events within a handful of weeks. And also to couples, it just shows that anything is definitely possible. So, don't put planning your dream wedding and having your wedding off just because you don't think you've got enough time, because there's some amazing suppliers obviously in the UK and globally as well that will be able to deliver your dream wedding within weeks.
So point number 6 is around space solutions. So how many couples do we know that have had to postpone their weddings where they were expecting to have larger numbers, maybe 150, 200, 250, and are now having to consider doing smaller events? If you have already booked your venue, with larger spaces, it does mean can create something quite unique. So using lighting, styling, furniture, and really jazz up the spaces and completely create something that's going to be memorable for you and your partner. So moving on to our next point, prioritising allocation of budget. Couples should look to maximise their budget by focusing on what's important to them. So for me, it would be ensuring that the entertainment is on point. Whereas for Radhika, she probably would want to allocate a very large proportion of the budget towards styling and the flowers. So do speak to your wedding planner to see where you can bring your dreams to life without breaking the bank.
So just touching on the point that you've just mentioned, Shindy, so this one's just actually for the couples out there that don't have a wedding planner booked and that are planning their own wedding. So what I would recommend to all of you guys out there is to actually just list out all the key areas of the wedding, all your key suppliers and all the things that you'd like or love to have at the wedding, and then try and prioritise what is essential and also what is nice to have. And then this will really help you to start prioritise and plan ahead with your budget.
What a fantastic point.
So guys, the final trend that we wanted to go through with you is multiple smaller celebrations. So if wedding numbers are restricted due to government guidance, couples will naturally have an intimate wedding. And then we see couples having mini gatherings with different groups of their relatives and friends after the wedding itself. We can definitely see this becoming a thing, and especially with our Asian culture where larger weddings are typically the norm for us.
Most definitely. So of all the trends we've discussed, I think this is probably the one that's going to have the most impact moving forward for weddings with smaller celebrations. I think a lot of us bride and grooms are secretly quite relieved that actually we don't need to have your uncles, neighbours, gardener at the wedding. Just the people that have to be there, the people that mean something, and something a lot more intimate. So definitely agree with that one, Radhika.
And there you have it, some of our top trends for 2021.
We hope you've enjoyed listening to today's show, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Asian Wedding Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please do leave us a review. Don't forget you can get in touch with us via the show notes or on our website, which is www.radhikaandyou.com. Thank you again for listening, and we hope you can join us on our next episode.